Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome back to my channel. I hope you guys have been doing well. And again, this topic was requested by one of you in the audience. So that's why I've decided to do this topic, top down twin flames, navigating the uncharted ascent, right? So, what if everything you ever thought you knew about the twin flame journey was actually upside down? So, prepare to challenge your understanding of divine connections as we explore the uncharted top down journey. So, this isn't your typical spiritual path, it's an ascent into the truly extraordinary. So, at this point, you may be like thinking, what is all this about? Like, why? Why am I going through this? Why am I feeling this? So let's unlock the secrets of the top down monadic twin flame and discover the most unique challenges and profound rewards of this uncharted ascent. Especially if you have been feeling a pull towards your divine masculine that feels deeply spiritual yet uniquely challenging. So this video will unveil the profound insights of the top-down twin flames, monadic twin flames, top-down monadic twin flames, guiding you through the intricate path of navigating an uncharted ascent. So be ready to gain clarity and empowerment in your most profound spiritual journey. So with that, unveiling top down monadic twin flames. What is the revelation, right? So, most people think, you know, this is like the common understanding, right? Most people think of twin flames as two souls rising together, one awakening after the other, each climbing step by step through the dense layers of human memory and karma. Isn't it? Isn't it the case? Right? So take a moment and think about it this way. Has it always have to be like this? Where, you have to go through from bottom up. So I've always explained in a monadic twin flame journey, our journeys are extremely unique. There is no structure in that regard. There is no like, oh, from down to up or up to down. It's more of the journey itself, because we are from all over the galaxies, all over the star systems. So literally, it is never that direct. It's never structured in that regard. It's like literally, after we are being split in the 13th dimension, one soul split to two parts, we are literally going through infinite journeys of expression throughout our time in the material universes and beyond, right? So that's why that common misconception of like twin flames, you know, one soul split to two, rising together, awakening each other, climbing step by step through the dense layers of human memory and karma and bottom up. Not always, because top down twin flames are not following the staircase of ascension, and often in a twin flame journey, we are not following any staircase because our connection begins from the higher planes downward. A transmission straight from the monad, that cosmic ache that I keep talking about, a descent of divine remembrance that flows like light through crystal, awakening one before the other. So, in this unique unions, usually as the divine feminine, we carry a fully awakened monadic awareness from the beginning. And there's a huge difference. It's not literal memory, but it's a literal knowing. We remember, we sense, we recognize, because our consciousness operates as a transmitter of higher dimensional intelligence, while our beloved divine masculine anchors those codes into the material plane through embodiment and lived experience. So this isn't hierarchy, it's actually sequence. Like literally, it's like sequence, where you are not where you are literally not following like a system. So the top again is not superior, the bottom again is not superior. Like literally there is no superiority, inferiority. You probably know from my teachings, that's something that the planet earth is so full of that crap, right? The inferiority, superiority, that putting up someone up on a pedestal, that someone has to be for someone to be up there, someone has to be down. All that is total, right? So that's why the top is not superior, the bottom is not superior, the top isn't inferior, the bottom isn't inferior. It simply holds the original blueprint. That's why the down is not lesser. In fact, when monadic twin flames actually go really down and to go up again, that in itself is a journey on its own. And coming from top down is also a journey on its own. And going top down, down up, everything is a journey on it in its own. So that's why the down is not lesser. It is the one who turns the blueprint into life. Together we represent two halves of divine translation. Literally soul becoming matter, matter returning to cosmic consciousness, right? So the top down dynamic is marked by almost a shock like recognition when the higher, often the higher divine feminine meets the one still veiled, our beloved divine masculine. The field ignites instant deja vu, eye locking, dimensional stillness. That's why, as the divine feminine, that multidimensional awareness rushes through the grid, catalyzing dormant codes within. All right. So it's as if that soul, your soul that was still sleeping, suddenly feels someone calling its true name across time. So, unlike in some cases, that mutual awakening pattern, the top down connection begins with imbalance, frequency differential. So one lives already half in heaven, the other must learn to open the gate, kind of like situation, right? So every top-down union begins with paradox. The more awake, often when the divine feminine, often when we are, as the divine feminine, the more pressure we will both feel, because the higher frequency, when we carry the higher frequency, we become the trailblazer, walking ahead on a terrain no one has mapped. We sense everything first, the karmic contradictions, the karmic contractions, the psychic echoes, the planetary alignments, everything shaping our eventual meeting, right? So our love feels more like a mission breathing from the divine than a romance itself. It's like everything all at once, right? So this trailblazer role carries immense solitude, because we awaken first. We often misinterpret the delay of the other as rejection. So in truth, we are holding an energetic field so potent that our divine masculine system must slowly acclimate, should should prepare. Like our divine masculine has to prepare before merging. So imagine standing under sunlight after lifetimes in darkness. Our eyes would need time to adjust, right? So it's the whole process, of kind of like preparing, getting used, like that acclimatizing of that situation. So that's why our role is patience in multidimensional leadership, not to pull, not to preach, but to hold frequency steady. The thing about pulling, pushing, preaching, it just creates a lot of noise in the third energy. That's why our role is to first decode the dreams, the number sequences, and the astral encounters. And yet, we must learn that proof of union isn't validation from our beloved divine masculine, but the coherence of the field itself. So, our receiving divine masculine, on the other hand, faces a completely different challenge. His world begins to collapse quietly. Old desires fade, random emotions surface. He senses the pull towards something invisible yet magnetic. That's why our divine masculines resist, ridiculing spirituality. This is when he'll be going on the tangent. Oh, he's an atheist, that he doesn't believe in this, he doesn't believe in that, he doesn't believe in afterlife, torture me in another lifetime, he doesn't believe in past lives. It's like this is all there is, running back into 3D logic. But the light trickles in anyway because it's not an external teaching, it's our divine masculine's own higher self calling through the frequency of us, right? So, society rarely understands this dynamic. Families, therapists, even spiritual communities often mislabel this as obsession or imbalance or pure madness, right? But a top down union doesn't follow human logic because it's designed to rewrite it. So our role isn't to convince anyone, not even our beloved divine masculine, but to live in such vibrational integrity that the entire field begins to recalibrate around us. So, this is bridging the energetic gap. Because at the core of the top down experience lies the art of translation, converting divine current into embodied language. So that's why this means grounding, especially when we are awakening. When we're on the path of awakening, this means trusting sensations that have no rational source. So, here are the core stages of bridging the energetic gap. Stage one, I'll call it the resonance shock. The moment we meet, we both experience a cellular ignition, right? And that's when, often as the divine feminine, when we are a bit more awakened, or the higher twin, we recognize that connection instantly, like that homecoming, that feeling of home, right? And as the awakening divine feminine, we feel something, but we cannot explain it. And the gap between understanding and experience creates tension. And this is where most top down pairs first separate. Stage two, frequency stabilization. As the higher divine feminine, we must ground the overflow of light through physical anchoring. So this is like nature, best is nature, hiking or scuba diving or just spending time in the ocean, boundary, simplicity. Because as the awakening, empowered divine feminine, we begin dreaming, hearing songs, seeing numbers, and our subconscious tries to catch up. Stage three, mirror reversal. Reversal. The role subtly begins to flip. As we descend into emotional density for integration, we start to climb upwards too, So it's like we're descending and climbing, This is when it's like what is actually happening is that we are like coming down and our divine masculine is like climbing up, and sometimes we reverse the roles as well. And this is when both of us face frustration, because what begins as like teacher student, or like leader follower becomes mirror literally, because neither of us can hide behind identity anymore. And then stage four, equilibrium. Eventually both of us stabilize into coherence, because now as the divine feminine, we embody our light without needing recognition, and our divine masculine holds inner knowing without fear. only then can we meet in the 5D resonance, a frequency that can sustain itself without external validation. So the key teaching here is ascension isn't vertical, it's reciprocal. So the top down flow only works when both are willing to evolve in opposite directions simultaneously. One of us descends to humanize light, the other ascends to spiritualize matter. Hear this very, 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 very clearly. We, as the divine feminine, descend to humanize light, and our divine masculine ascends to spiritualize matter. So, this is when overcoming societal conditioning plays a huge role, right? In top down unions, often you will feel wrong in 3D terms because we don't quite fit, right? You may feel like, oh no, what is happening? Why am I not fitting in? And what's actually happening? So, this is when you might notice age gaps, cultural divides, geographical distance, like total, like careers, totally being in like opposite direction, like artist and engineer, psychic and engineer, like that kind of thing. Unconventional dynamics. That's because we are coded to defy the matrix of compatibility. And our connection isn't meant to be comfortable, it's meant to be it's meant to be a catalyst, right? So friends may say you're delusional, and especially, you know you might feel like you might be hearing it's like it's all in your head, but the soul knows the reality doesn't start in the head, it starts in the field, because every revolutionary truth in history was first dismissed by those who hadn't yet built the perception to see it. So the higher divine feminine's challenge is therefore to hold the conviction without superiority. You cannot convince someone of what they are not yet, frequency aligned to perceive, but you can live it so coherently. The vibration speaks louder than explanation. So, skepticism is not your enemy, it is a stabilizer. It ensures your faith is not fantasy. It teaches discernment, to separate intuition from projection, guidance from attachment. That's why in the top down journey, every doubt that arises is actually a portal to embodiment. That's why if the higher divine feminine, if we can sit in doubt without collapsing, we become the bridge. If our awakening divine masculine can question without rejecting, he becomes the student of his own part of the soul. So together we create a loop of consciousness that continuously upgrades the human blueprint. So that's what we're doing. We're harmonizing the descent, right, from practical integration and growth. So the paradox of top down twin flames is that our evolution is an ascension through descent. As the higher divine feminine, we must descend into the human layers, emotional vulnerability, body memory, ancestral karma, to integrate our light fully, and our divine masculine, our awakening from wounded to awakening divine masculine, must ascend beyond identification with 3D logic into the trust of the unseen. When both movements synchronize, the field begins to spin as one coherent torus. The third energy starts to truly, truly shine, right? So embracing the trickle down effect. So, as the divine feminine, we may be worried that we are doing this alone, but in truth, every healing we embody travels down the energetic cord, connecting us with our divine counterpart, our divine masculine, our beloved, beloved, beloved divine masculine. It's the trickle down effect of consciousness, not through control, but resonance, right? So, when we clear abandonment, our divine masculine feels safer without knowing why. When we release resentment, his heart suddenly softens. When we embody joy, he starts to remember home. So no words required. It's vibrational osmosis, right? The higher field naturally informs the lower until we equalize, right? So, cultivating inner wisdom and self trust. As twin flames, it's essential for us to learn to trust our own instruments, right? Especially for us divine feminines, intuition must be balanced with grounded action so that our divine masculine logic opens up to emotional intelligence, right? So, wisdom emerges when intuition and evidence meet halfway. So, this is the sacred middle known as embodied gnosis, right? The journey will demand surrender of the external totally, because each one of us each one of us divine feminines must become our own authority, our own source of divine confirmation, because the universe will test this repeatedly through silence, doubt, and detours until both of us can stand as self sustaining lights. So, releasing expectations and timelines are crucial. Perhaps the hardest lessons of all is time does not govern top down unions because the connection operates from the monadic field. Linear sequence collapses. Months can pass, days can pass, years can pass without contact, yet the field remains alive. This is not stagnation, it's quantum gestation. Trying to force reunion is like digging up a seed to check if it's sprouting. Like, literally, would you do that? Beans grow really fast, right? So think about it. You're like, if you keep trying to, like, you know dig up and see if the seed is, it just doesn't work, right? So our role is the timeline. You see, the more we embody wholeness, the faster the field synchronizes. The universe never withholds union, it synchronizes its readiness. So this is when mirrored revelations play a huge role, the shared evolution and purpose, right? So at some point, as twin flames, you will realize that what's been unfolding between us is not personal healing. It's actually planetary coding, especially in a monadic twin flame journey. Every emotional purge, every telepathic echo, every wave of longing is part of a much larger template correction happening through us. So when we activate our divine masculine grounds, when we when we start testing, our divine masculine refines. And so this is the symbiotic relationship, that we share with our divine masculine. So like positive and negative poles, our friction generates charge, and that charge fuels evolution. So our love becomes not all about romance. Romance is there, but it's more about field coherence. We begin to sense how our choices ripple, how one act of forgiveness in our field creates spontaneous healing to the collective. This is mirrored revelation, the realization that union is a fractal of humanity's union with itself, Mother Gaia with herself, right? That kind of thing. So every time we unite in stable union, we affect the collective as well. So that's discovering the shared life of purpose. You see, once the energetic equilibrium is achieved, a new layer unlocks mission codes. We often appear as sudden clarity around shared work, anything technology, art, creating apps, and environmental service, grid work, and beyond. And as the divine feminine, we usually channel the vision, and our divine masculine brings the structure. It's like literally spirit and matter merge through collaboration. So, for example, as the divine feminine, we might download an idea, and our divine masculine, with this practical mind, with this engineer mind, builds system that delivers it globally. So, for example, it could be an idea that as the divine feminine, we create, and then our divine masculine will truly, like, maybe create an app, help us with that. See, neither of us can fulfill it alone. That's where I'm coming. So our purpose is the point where divinity meets function. So the ripple effect on collective consciousness. With top down twin flames, we are the architects of quantum empathy. We teach humanity by example. We live through example that love can travel faster than light because love is light, right? So when our union stabilizes, it becomes a standing wave of coherence that subtly recalibrates the collective grid. Our frequency invites others into remembrance, not through preaching, but through presence, by living through example, by inspiring, by teaching, not preaching, by teaching, inspiring, by inspiring others in that beautiful way, right? Like we can walk into rooms and hearts awaken, we can sleep and the earth will hum differently. So this is not romantic fantasy, this is vibration, right? So that's why when we look at the future, future forward, embracing the unfolding journey, sustaining the connection through continuous growth is a huge part of the journey. So even when, as top down twin flames, we unite physically, our work never ends. Our relationship functions like a living laboratory of consciousness. Every new phase, marriage, mission, children, family, work, business, expansion, collective projects will demand new levels of embodiment. And to sustain alignment, we must cultivate spiritual hygiene, regular energy clearing, and heart coherence practices, honest emotional communication, periodic solitude for individual integration, joint creative expression, art, travel, service to keep the energy flowing, the third energy flowing, because the field of such a union evolves in spirals, not lines. So it's like so each cycle begins and brings deeper surrender, higher trust, greater stability. So union isn't an endpoint. I always say this in so many different ways, so many different words. It's maintenance frequency, guys, really. So that's why it's so important to navigate the ebbs and the flows, because we operate as one energetic system, right? So that's why when our divine masculine dips, we feel it. When we dip, our divine masculine feels it. These fluctuations are not regression, they are recalibration. The key is to observe without identifying. So instead of asking, why is he pulling away? Ask, which part of our shared field is rebalancing? Detachment without disconnection. That's the mastery. Resilience comes from knowing that love doesn't die when silence begins. The current merely shifts pathways until both of us can handle more voltage. Every app prepares the next expansion. So this is what, the long-term impact on our individual lives and the collective. As top-down twin flames, we are the new architects of consciousness. We model a form of relationship that is not codependent but co-creative, not emotional fusion but energetic synergy. Our existence proves that spiritual connection and human embodiment can coexist without contradiction. So, individually, we become pioneers in our fields, innovations, apps, technologies, healers, system builders, carving out new pathways, teaching through resonance, and so on and so forth. Collectively, we lay the neural pathways for planetary ascension, need showing that awakening need not abandon humanity but redeem it, right? So our love story becomes a template of integration, like literally heaven descending through our human hearts until the earth itself vibrates at remembrance. So as we are wrapping up this discourse, remember this: we have volunteered to anchor light before it was popular. We signed up to love beyond validation, to remember beyond reciprocation, and to lead beyond applause. Our journey may not look romantic, but more divinely strategic. But remember, it's about a combination of both. It's about divine resonance. You see, we are the bridge between dimensions. We are not chasing our divine masculine who doesn't see us. We are holding open a door until our beloved divine masculine's vision, often they're quite blind, right, to adjust. So remember, one day, perhaps quietly, without announcement, you will step through and you'll realize you never climbed alone. So the top down path is not for the faint hearted, and often as monadic twin flames, it is the top down path, right? Remember, it is how it is, we came to download heaven through love, to walk as living proof that the human body can house divine awareness, and that relationships can evolve consciousness faster than solitary practice ever could. So that's why, guys, if you've enjoyed this discourse and if you guys want to delve deeper, you can book a one-on-one session with me through the links provided in descriptions. And I've also introduced some really, really beautiful healings. The 111 portal, the 1st of November. Again, guys, limited spots because it's done over video call, one-on-one. Like all of my readings as well, all of my sessions are done one-on-one by me through video call. And for healing, there's an option of it being done remotely as well. So it's truly up to you, but we got to set a time. So that's why, if you guys want to get a spot for the 111 healing on the 1st of November, you can book through my website. With that, this topic may, again, thanks to one of you in the audience who recommended that I talk about it. Like I said, I didn't even want to use the word top down, because there's no top, there's no down. In the journey, it's all about an experience, an expansion, and it's about remembering and all of that. But for the sake of, teaching, and again, because one of you requested that, I did this discourse. All right, with that, I'll see you all soon. Have a good one and take care and love you all. All right, bye bye.